Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Hassan, and I wanted to do a video about the metaverse, which is all the rage, and connect the dots with what I believe is really significantly missing in this age of digitalization and the move to the metaverse, where things are becoming more and more surreal and less grounded in the human experience. And I'd like to start with a quote from Dr. Jeremy Bailenson from the Stanford Virtual Human Interaction Lab. Uh, I've been following Dr. Bailenson's research very closely because he and his students are basically doing research, neuroscientific research, to figure out what happens in the brain and how to create a virtual environment. And while that proposes to be a wonderful thing with potentially incredible uses to better humanity, my concern is that it can also be used to mind control people and unduly influence them at a level that's never been done before. And I want to start with a quote that I saw on Dr. Rand Waltzman's Twitter feed on the metaverse, a quote from Dr. Bailenson. And the quote is, quote, "People like things that are similar to them, whether it's verbally, non-verbally, or in appearance. We like people who look like us. We wanted to ask the big question in the world where I can make myself look more like you. How does that affect my ability to influence you?" And I'm going to tell you from my 45 years of helping people out of mind control cults, this is a digital version of what's called mirroring, where people in, for example, neurolinguistic programming, NLP, are taught to reflect the behaviors of the person they're trying to influence back on them. In other words, synchronize breathing, use the same types of words that they're using, mirror behaviorally their gestures. So if they cross their arms, you cross your arms, etc. So this is a level with AI and with virtual reality that is potentially, as I said before, can be used ethically and help people with all kinds of very important things. But who's talking about ethics? Who's concerned about the future of people's minds, especially when it comes to authoritarian countries or authoritarian dictators that want to push this uh, virtual reality, this metaverse, on all of us? You know, I think that our brains have not adapted yet to the virtual world, and we're now having the next generation growing up on the screens. And all the research that I've seen suggests that screens are really bad for emotional and social and psychological development, especially in the first several years of life. And I've been wanting to do a blog that highlights a theory that my first wife, Aureet Bar-Yam, developed when she was doing her doctoral thesis. And I want to read a short description of her article that was published. It's called Interpersonal Development Across the Lifespan, Communion and its Interaction with Agency in Psychosocial Development. I know that's a very technical term, but let me read a little bit more. And she developed this with her mother, who is a psychologist from Harvard, Miriam Bar-Yam, and the theory was published in 1987, I should add. And I wanted to read what it says here. In recent years, feminist psychologists have raised important criticisms of traditional psychological theories, particularly those theories which propose to be comprehensive descriptions of human development. For example, Gilligan in 1982 argues that these theories have been dominated by a male biased emphasis on separation and individuation, thereby failing to provide an understanding of development of relationships and connectedness. For example, Erik Erikson's identity theory, the guy who invented the idea of identity, and he wrote his first paper and material in 1950 and then updated it in 1968. His model of personality development begins with the stage of connectedness and infancy, trust versus mistrust, but then fails to describe the development in terms of relationships until the adult stage of intimacy versus isolation. One might wonder how the capacity for intimacy can suddenly emerge in later life with almost no previous preparation, particularly when all prior development is focused on increasing separateness. Franz and White, 1985, argue that Erikson's theory in neglecting relationship issues does not provide a framework for understanding how individuals move from the dependency of the trust versus mistrust stage to the mature interdependence of the intimacy stage. In light of these criticisms, there's a need for a new theoretical understanding that accounts for the important function of interpersonal relations in the life cycle. And if you look at Aureet's theory, it makes so much sense. And we just aren't aware or teaching properly how to build relationships, how to have communion with other people, and not just virtually, but in real life. And to understand this would really advance us dramatically. And it's something that seems to be totally missing from the online experience. Like totally missing. And it's so critical for any civilization to be thinking of the future and to want to prepare children to be fully functioning, individuated adults who feel a passion and a connection to other human beings in the real world, to care about global climate crisis because it's in the real world and not just escape spending hour after hour in fantasy land trying to avoid or numb the grim realities that we really need everybody's hands on deck to deal with the problems that we're facing in the world. And most essentially, love and connection and relationships are vital for the human experience. So please check out the blog and look up her theory and beware the metaverse. Thank you.